Hi everyone, it's Becky from Harp Strings and Wings, and I know it's been a super long time since the birth of my baby, and this is my labor and delivery video. It's been really hard for me to sit down and film this video because the birth was very difficult, and it's been kind of like one challenge after another since her birth, so I'm finally getting around to this. So some of you may find this video informative that if you have an arcuate uterus or you had a retained placenta, this birth and labor delivery story covers that. I don't know if you're triggered by any of that, this video might be a little hard for some of you to listen to or experience. So just letting you know, like, look out for that. I will try, the most difficult part, I will try to like warn you ahead of time so that you know it's coming, and if you want to skip ahead, you can. So let's get started. So for like the first 1 or 2 weeks before her birth, I had, forgive me if I say this wrong, prodromal labor, and it would start and stop, and it was just really annoying because it would like start in the evenings and contractions, and then they would just stop. So I was 41 weeks and 3 days. I was scheduled for induction, and I really didn't want to be induced if I could help it. I wanted her to pick her birthday. And so my sister came out, and we were trying to think of ways to induce, and decided to try primrose oil, and that really helped get the contractions started. And then the next day, I think I had a checkup or something with the doctor, and he did a quick membrane sweep. So that all really helped get things started. But there was a delay at the hospital, and my room wasn't ready or anything, which was fine with me because I was trying to avoid induction. And then finally, when they said a room was available, I was having pretty regular contractions. And when I got out of the car at the hospital, my water leaked. Like, it was just one of those classic moments where I'm like, getting out of the car, and I could just feel it coming, like gushing out. And yeah, it was interesting feeling. And yeah, I have a little cheat sheet here that I'm looking at because it's just, there's so much that happened that I cannot even keep it straight in my head. So anyway, just forgive me. When I was at the hospital, the only way I could keep the contractions regular was to walk around. And every time I sat down, they would just go away. So I had a really hard time just getting started. And the staff, they admitted me because my water had broke. So they just automatically admitted me out because of that. Then I was only 2 to 3 centimeters dilated, so not very far along at all. And I just could not progress on my own. I mean, hours. I was walking those hallways, and my total labor was 30 hours. So, I mean, they really held off as long as they could, and it just wears you down. And so it's no wonder that they wanted to try the Pitocin, because after I realized, you know what, these contractions are going away when I sit down, they're not starting. I went ahead and said, let's do the Pitocin. So we did that, and I was really worried and scared that they'd make the contractions horrible, but actually they were fine until I sat on the ball and I was moving around and laboring on the bouncy ball thing, whatever. And I felt a snap. So the rest of my water broke. And as soon as that happened, the Pitocin pain for contractions after your water has broke is just unbelievable. It's the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. So it's worse than appendectomy pain that I was in for 14 hours. So yeah, when it like reached a 10, and it was definitely a 10 on the pain scale, I was like, I can't do this. I knew I needed help with an epidural, especially because I wasn't far enough dilated wise. And so I just knew, like, to avoid a C-section, let's get this epidural going. However, an epidural is not always a fail-safe because mine only took on one side. And by the way, I meant to tell you, I had constant laboring back pain that never stopped with contractions. So I'd have a contraction like normal. I never got that break that people get in between contractions because it was constantly in my back. So imagine like 1,000 like hot searing pokers like in your back all the time for that. Yeah, it was hideous. So that never let up. And with the epidural only working, I could feel like it's still on one side. And so because I had difficulty laying on my side, they decided to finally convince me to turn me and let the epidural medicine like drain, and it worked. So finally I got the full epidural effect, but then it was like, she's like, well, rest up, try to get some sleep for 2 hours. I was so pumped up on adrenaline, there's no way I could get sleep. But I did get temporary relief, and that helped me dilate, which was awesome. But when that came, she's like, okay, let's try some practice pushing. And they made the epidural medication go away because I could not feel a thing down there. There's no way I could push. I could not. Yeah, it was just like I knew that had to wear off in order for me to push, because I just couldn't feel anything. So, however, when it wore off, it really wore off. It wore off everywhere but my legs. So in the end, I felt everything like a natural birth. And I'm kind of thinking that's not so bad compared to like the Pitocin and everything. The ring of fire, all of that. I'm like, oh, this is nothing compared to what, like back labor and, oh my goodness, no. That was just, wow. And so, yeah, I'm gearing up to push. I pushed for 1.5 hours. And I remember the nurse telling me like, oh, an average first time mom pushes for like 4 hours. I'm like, really? Not helping with that comment. Thank you so much. But I like that nurse actually. But yeah, that comment I could have did without. But I remember being so angry, and I was angry at the nurses, and I was like yelling at everybody like, I'm feeling everything. You said I wouldn't feel anything. Like I was just so upset. And the pushing was just so intense with the contractions. Sometimes I would have these double contractions, which I never got a break. Oh man, that was tough. So I did what they call purple pushing. I mean, yeah, it was not great, but I did try the J breathing, and that didn't seem to do, it helped me breathe her down, but honestly, I had to push as hard as I've ever pushed in my entire life and explode my face pushing. Like, at that point, I was like, get her out. I don't care if my eyes pop. Like, the pain was that intense. And yeah, so I pushed and pushed. And I remember the nurse asking me if I wanted to, and the midwife asking me if I wanted to reach down and feel her head, which I did, and it was amazing. And that was good motivation. Also, the nurses always were cheering me on. And especially towards the end, I felt really motivated to push really hard and get her out. And when she was born, it was it's so amazing feeling, like whoosh, and just, it feels so good. Like just her coming out. And she's on my chest, they rubbed her back, and she started crying. And then we did a bit of breastfeeding and skin to skin. And it was truly amazing. Husband cut the cord, and then they were sewing me up, which I had a 2nd-degree tear, and it was a lot of tugging, not pleasant. Even though I'm none down there, it was just not pleasant. And then they're waiting, and I felt a blob of my placenta coming out. This is all a bunch of TMI, so if you don't want to hear about this is fine. But I think I'll go ahead and give you the warning right now for the disturbing part, which was the really hard part. So if you want to skip ahead, go ahead now. Okay, so the placenta was not coming out. I have what is called an arcuate uterus, which probably was the cause of the placenta. In fact, it was the cause of the placenta sticking up there, and it was coming out in pieces. So they had to, the poor nurse, I felt so bad for her. She felt horrible that she had to do this with me, and I could tell she didn't even want to cause me pain, but she had to press on my abdomen, and that hurt, and I screamed, and to get parts of it to come out, and then it just wasn't coming out. And so she looked at me and she said, I am so sorry. This is hard. She's like, I have to go up inside you, reach in and try to get it out. Now, many of you know that I was trying to fight for my placenta so I could have it encapsulated. So I was very, very, I wanted to fight for my placenta. I really wanted to get it and see if I could still have it. So that geared me up, and I was like, just get in there and do it if you have to. And it was horrible. It was very traumatic. And she felt horrible. I did not blame her one bit.
So there was a part she couldn't get out that was really stuck up there, and there was just nothing she could do, and she didn't want to cause me any more pain. So in between, they were discussing surgery options, so I needed to have emergency surgery, a DNC, and in between that time, I can't remember what happened, but I fainted. So because of the blood loss, and I just remember my eyes being open and just kind of like leaning to the side, and everybody rushing in, and my husband was scared. His worst fear was, you know, coming true, losing his wife, the possibility. It was just, yeah, horrible. I think it's still too hard for me to talk about, obviously. So, yeah, I came to, they put me back on my back, and I just came to. I don't really remember. I'm trying hard, but. And since the epidural didn't take, they decided to go ahead and put me under, but they told my husband that he could come in and be with me. But when they decided to knock me out, they said nobody could be in the room with me for whatever reason. But he was so upset about that. He was so upset. And my doula calmed him down, thank goodness. Yeah, and that was successful. When I came out, I was all giddy and goofy and joking with the nurses, and that my husband told me that made him happy that I was doing so much better. And the most positive thing I can remember about all of this, obviously being my baby being born, was there was a gorgeous heavenly sunrise after she was born, and it was amazing. I tried to go to sleep that night and I couldn't. So every time I tried to fall asleep, I would like drift. I would be in like lucid sleep. I could hear everything around me, that kind of thing, but my body would jerk itself awake. And that first night was horrible because I kept doing that. I kept jerking awake. I couldn't get any sleep. I was so exhausted from all the laboring and everything that I'd been through. And to make matters worse, baby girl was throwing up every hour. Nobody told me this, but your baby will throw up amniotic fluid after it's born, and usually it just throws up maybe a couple times. The nurses were saying, oh, that's normal. And I'm like, really? Because she's throwing up every hour. And that night we were so scared that she would choke, and my husband I'd have to scream for him to get up and help her, and he had to flip her over and pat her on the back, and she would just puke so much amniotic fluid. She had hiccups a lot in utero, so I think she just swallowed so much fluid. When she finally had her first bowel movement, it pushed the rest of that fluid out, so she no longer threw up. But that was just so stressful. And so combine that with no sleeping, yeah, not good. So I had a PTSD no sleep response for 96 hours. So after I got home with the baby and everything, I still wasn't sleeping. Still not sleeping. All I could do was get in kind of a meditative state and try lucid sleep. That was it. So I was at my wit's end. I was about to go into the ER and just drop over from not having enough sleep. And so I decided to get help with OB and Ambien. And so I've been on that since, and I'm going to do another video on my treatment for anxiety, PTSD, anxiety, postpartum anxiety, all of that, and what I've been doing to cope. And but that's just another story. So yeah. But anyway, that was my birth story. Not the happiest, but the truth is I survived it, and I want to encourage those with an arcuate uterus, please find out whether or not your placenta, where it's at. This could help you in the long term. In the end, I'm almost thinking a C-section would have been safer for my life. Modern medicine saved my life. If I was at home, I think a natural birth would have been just fine, but it was the placenta issue that I would have I could have died from if surgery wasn't an option. So I'm thankful for modern medicine. And I'm thankful for the treatment that I got from the hospital. About posting regular videos, I have no idea what my schedule is going to be like, but I hope to show some baby favorites and that kind of thing ever so often, and whenever I can fit a video in. Thanks for sticking with my channel, guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.